Why doesn't the WNBA get the same love as the NBA? Table Chatter presents Open Table Discussions. On this episode, we have Nia and Watson. Welcome back to the table. Glad to have you as always. So there's been this meme that's been floating around social media that I came across this week, showing Sue Bird next to LeBron James, and it's basically a comparison of the two. So both of them have been in their seasons for 17 seasons. Both of them have 4 championships, and for 2020, as of 2020, their salary is dramatically different. It shows that Sue Bird's salary was $215,000, and LeBron was $37.44 million. Okay, and they have different bonuses. Bonus for winning for Sue Bird last year was $11,356, and LeBron's bonus for winning in the finals $370,000. So we can already see the big difference between the WNBA and the NBA. So now the question is, hey, sorry to interrupt. Just wanted to give you an early reminder, if you haven't already, to please subscribe to this channel and also hit the bell notification to be notified of future episodes. Also, make sure you like the video, post your comment below, and share it with your friends. Thank you so much. Appreciate your support. Now back to the show. What are some of the reasons you think the WNBA and women's basketball in general don't get the same love compared to men's? What is going on? Do you think it's because, women are not supporting the WNBA, or do you think something else is going on? What are your thoughts? Ladies first.
I can see Wedson revving up. I could see it on his face. I mean, for me, obviously, because, regardless as to the fact that it's a sport, it's a business, first and foremost. So the money's got to be there for you to pay people, in any company. If your company is not making money, you can't pay your employees. So obviously, the funding for the WNBA is different. Mm-hmm. So that's going to contribute to the discrepancies in their salary. Now, my issue is that the discrepancy in their salary, I feel, has an underlying reason, and it's not about women not supporting the NBA. It's not even necessarily about men not supporting the WNBA. It's about the fact that women in sports aren't taken seriously. Women in most spaces are not taken seriously, but sports in particular, it's not something that we're guided to do even. It's not something that, when generally when you think of an athlete, up until recently, up until like the Williams sisters, when you think of an athlete, the first thing that pops into your head is a giant man. Physically, when you think of an athlete, somebody's going to think about somebody who looks like Wedson, not somebody who looks like me. You know what I mean? So that discrepancy, I think, has a lot to do with why they don't have the funding that they should have, probably, and why their salaries are going to be so different.
Watson, what are your thoughts? What are your initial thoughts on this?
When it comes to female athletes versus men in general, I can agree with Nia saying that for a very long time, women weren't taken as seriously as men. I mean, if you look back to a lot of sports, we can name a couple of female athletes. You look whether it's track is not something that most people pay attention to as often, but you look at every other sport, it was very much male dominated. Whether it was NASCAR, basketball, and it's across the board, it's mostly been men. men, because men has been, more so the ones presented as, the idea when it comes to athletics until recently when we got, gymnasts in the Olympic, the Williams sisters, in tennis and stuff like that. But for me, it goes a little bit further with the fact that you look at these organizations before they had like the NBA. The NBA has been around 74 years. The WNBA, 24 years. In fact, most people, depending on your age, you remember when the NBA first became a thing. So, with that being said, a 74-year-old organization as opposed to a 24-year-old one, especially one who's not whose promotions and revenue are not the same, there's going to be a huge discrepancy in funding and salary and everything in between. You look at even like stuff like the Olympics. These Olympic athletes, when they come around, during during the year of the Olympics, we pay close attention to them. We love them in that moment, but once they go away, you don't hear too much about these athletes, whether it's swimmers, gymnasts, track stars, all that. So for me, it just really depends on like how much are they out there. And as far as the WNBA goes versus the NBA, the WNBA generates roughly $70 billion a year. As
How
opposed
much?
to the
Say that
NBA,
again.
which generates roughly $70 million a year, as opposed to the NBA, who generates more like 7.5 billion. That is a
Mm,
huge gap. We're talking less than 1%. So it's like
wow.
if you're not generating as much money, then we cannot pay you the same. It just doesn't work. And I think so. With that being said, of course, the NBA, the WNBA cannot pay their players the same way as much as the NBA. I don't think it's as far as underlying issue goes. I don't know if it's under. I don't know if there's an underlying issue. I think it's just between timing and support and revenue, it's just not the same.
Okay. So I watch the WNBA sometimes, and when
Hmm.
I do watch it, it is enjoyable. The women are just as skilled. It's just that you're not going to see them high flying dunking like the men do. And I've read, people talk about this online, and they have made suggestions like I've seen it. They say they should lower the rim so that the women can dunk and that more people could watch. I'm just throwing it out there. Do you think something like that would make a difference, hypothetically, if the WNBA were to say, you know what, let's lower it, let's get the women dunking? Do you think that would make a difference and people watching it, or no?
I mean,
They have to do something.
okay. So with most sports, there's a certain amount of showboating that occurs,
Mm-hmm.
outside of your ability to play the sport itself. And a lot of people watch for the showboating. They're not necessarily looking at your technique or your ability. They're looking for you to entertain them, which is fine. But the fact is that when you watch the WNBA, most of them are playing the game. So you
Mm-hmm.
see their skill and you see their technique, but they're not putting on a show. So that seems to be a lot of the issue. And as far as like dunking is putting on a show, like you don't have to do that all the time. It isn't necessary, to get around somebody. If that's the angle you're at, if a dunk is what's going to happen, then that's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But to impose that as, oh, well, we need to see them do tricks.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Like it shouldn't be necessary. And there's a lot of female basketball players who are more than tall enough to dunk. There are female basketball players who are the same size as the men. So that
That's
whole
true.
lowering the rim thing, that's going to then put them at a disadvantage because it's going to look like they're on a child's court and it's going to look crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So they can't, you can't cater to the smaller players the same way, because they're not going to do that in the NBA. The NBA has some short players. They don't cater to them. They're not lowering rims so that, little tiny Tim can dunk on it. No, they're
Mm-hmm.
expecting them to step up, but they're also expecting them to put on the show. Women tend to not showboat as much. And I think that's part of what the problem is. Part of what the
Mm.
problem is.
Weston, what do you think about the lowering the rim so that they could dunk?
that wasn't just like some online thing being talked
Mm-hmm.
about. They
Mm-hmm.
actually they actually made a suggestion to actually make it a thing.
Okay.
However, and grand fashion, women said, "Oh, so are you saying men are not, women are not as athletic as men? Are you saying that we cannot do the same thing? That we need the standard lower for us in order to be able to compete?" And then immediately, of course, to make sure that they weren't labeled sexist and stuff like that, they shut the idea down. But here's another thing with that. Um, Across the board, when it comes to sports,
Mm-hmm.
showboarding is a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
The NFL lost money when they started finding players for
For
dancing and doing certain
and
stuff
then
in the end
so
zone.
right. I remember that.
The NBA, for example, there are certain teams. The San Antonio Spurs are one of the most like successful like sports teams the league has seen in 25 years.
But
From
they don't
96
showboat. Uh-huh.
from 96 to 2021,
They don't showboat.
they've made the playoffs 24 out of 25 times in the last 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
They've won 5 championships. They've been to probably another like 5 conference finals and a couple more finals that they lost. So when I say successful, they are one of the most successful teams the league has ever seen in the last 25 years. However, if you check their attendance and like their revenue, as much money as they make, it's less than some other teams. Because for a while, they went with this idea that there are no superstars who are all just one team. There's like one guy who's like above the rest, which is like you can name them from the Spurs. Tim Duncan, Ginobili, Parker. You can name a couple of guys who's been there, who were who play very technically savvy, who plays very well, and again, the team is winning. But people will tell you they are boring because they play technically. Because they focus on, which is great. However, we want the excitement. When we watch a boxing match with Floyd Mayweather, where people always say, "Oh, all he does is run away for 12 rounds." He doesn't get hit. You don't see any like heavy knockouts, in his fights. What do people say? His fights are boring. When
Right.
you see like the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, the game ended like 13-6 or 13-7. People were like, "Oh, the Super Bowl is so boring," because all they did was play defense all game, basically. There were excitements there. So when you put all that, the excitement is a part of the sport, and everybody is subject to it, including the men. The men who aren't as exciting to watch don't get the same revenue and ad space and like highlights. They don't.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, it's something that everybody's a part of. But if you mention that about the WNBA, people are like, "Oh, what are you saying? Are you saying that?" And then as far as people say, are you saying that women aren't as exciting, etc. We're saying if you're not exciting, you're not exciting. Don't care if you're men or women, because men are subject to the same thing. And when we talk about and Nia mentioned about women being able to dunk, and if you were to like lower the rim for some of them, it would benefit more so the more athletic ones, like the taller women. That's how the NBA is right now. The more athletic guys are the ones that's up there doing all these things. But and the difference is compared to the men, that's above a certain height and athleticism level versus the WNBA. It's a major difference. In the NBA, you could say 90% of those guys could dunk and do highlight things, as opposed to 10% that can't. Where in the end in the WNBA, it's vice versa. It's maybe like 10% that could possibly do it if they lower the rim to a certain extent, and as opposed to 90% who can't do it, or even
Mm.
at where it is now. So the discrepancy is there, and then so while it would make sense to some, oh yeah, well to me it would make sense to lower the rim, and then at least give it a trial, give it a try, do a trial run, do a trial period, see how it goes. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, fine, go back to whatever you were. But to completely shut it down, because, to assume that, oh yeah, we're just saying that women aren't as good, I think it's incorrect.
Yeah. I think they should try it. It doesn't. It's not going to hurt. I mean, you're trying to get more eyeballs. You're trying to get more revenue. You're trying to get more attention. Why not try it? I mean, I guess the women feel some type of way. Like, I don't know. It's. I mean, I can understand how some women will. I don't know. Feel like they're not good enough the way it is, so you have to lower it. it's tricky. It's tricky. You know, I see it both ways, but I think it would be great to see women jamming on each other here and there. Sometimes, like that would be amazing to see. Honestly, you know, I would like to see that. And I've been to WNBA games. You know, there's some great players, but you know, anything that they can do to get more attention, I don't think it's a bad thing. You know, especially with the WNBA season being so short. It's pretty much like in the summer, right? It's not as long as the NBA, so we don't even see them that long. So when we do see them, it will be great to see more highlights and more, you know, oohs and ahs. You know, that's what I think. Now, let me ask you this other question to the both of you. Do you think there's another issue with women supporting women?
No.
So how? Okay.
Fix your face. Because no. This has nothing to do with women.
I'm just asking.
Women. No, I'm talking to Wedson because I'm looking at his face right now. It is not as cut and dry as saying, oh, women need to support women more. Women, by and large, are not the majority of basketball fans. We're just not. We're not the majority of the viewership. So why should we suddenly decide, okay, well, because women are doing things, we got to watch the games? No, if we're not going to watch it for our boyfriends or our husbands, why are we going to watch it for a bunch of women we don't even know? For what? For the men who are actually engaged in the sport, in the sport itself, not in the gender of the persons playing the sport, but in the sport itself. Why don't more men support the WNBA? And I'm not saying that men don't. That is not what I'm saying at all, because I know there is a large number of men who do. When the times I've been to WNBA games, I was one of very few females, and there was plenty of men's in the stands. There wasn't a lot of people in general, but the people who did show up, a great number of them were men. So I'm not saying men don't support the WNBA. What I'm saying is that as lovers of the sport in general, you would think that there would be more support for the women. And I believe that there isn't, because women aren't taken seriously in certain athletic zones. And basketball is one of those zones where it's cute. You know, it's cute when your homegirl likes to play basketball and then you guys are on the court and she's like dunking on you and then you're like body checking each other. But that's the mindset when most men think about women playing sports. It's cute. You know, when I used to play football with people, oh, she wants to play. Oh, that's cute. Okay, well, let's put her in the back. You can catch the ball if it comes by you. It's like, no, that's not what's gonna happen. So you see him right there, the big one? I tackle him? Yes? Okay, good. This I'm gonna stand here. Thank you very much. And most women aren't going to demand that. And as far as putting on, you know, dropping the hoop, sure, try it. I am all for trying anything that's going to get them more attention. But what my concern is going to be is that the hoops will drop, they'll start dunking, it'll be more of a show, and then there's going to be another excuse as to why the WNBA is just not as popular. There's always going to be another excuse because nobody wants to say that people don't want to watch these girls play basketball because they're these girls playing basketball. You know, it's not like they've got cute little uniforms. You know, they don't have their makeup done. Their hair is not all done up. They look just like the dudes look. And fact of the matter is, seeing girls' body parts shake as they run up and down a court or a field, it's part of the entertainment. It's part of the attraction and it's a part of the draw. Unfortunately, we learned that with the Williams sisters because they are phenomenal athletes. But especially when they first started, the majority of what you heard was how short their skirts were, how thick their thighs were, how fat their asses were. Whether it be praise or criticism, those were the things that you heard about them first. And even in this stage of their career, there was more talk about their bodies than their ability. And that's a fact of women in sports, period. Most female athletes, unless you're stacked or there's something physically to attract people to you, you're not going to get as much attention.
we talk about, you asked whether women should support women more in order to to make the WNBA more profitable.
That's right.
And Nia said that it's about the fact that the viewership, basketball is already like a male dominated thing,
Mm-hmm.
and the viewership is already like male already has the monopoly on that. So we need to support more. Yes, am I saying that correctly?
Mm-hmm.
That we need to continue to support the WNBA the same way we support the NBA.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. But being that we are the majority of the supporters already, being that there's a lot of okay, for example, this is a point I was going to say. Women's MMA, women in the UFC,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that the UFC is like, listen, we have a card, we have a pay-per-view match. It's
Mm-hmm.
gonna be men and women all combined, all at once, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then so now the leagues are not separated. The leagues, it's all integrated. It's all one, right? But if the WNBA were to try that, to make it all into one league, men and women all combined,
Mm.
do you see how there will be a discrepancy in talent and skill set versus, like if it was like integrated as men and women?
No.
Like,
No.
you don't think there would be?
I don't think that's a guarantee. No.
Really? Because the average height of the WNBA player, I mean, or the median height in terms of like average out from the shorter one to the taller one, the median height is about 5'10", 5'11".
Mm.
Okay.
If you average it out. So as far as women who are on the taller side of things, like 6'4" and above, we're talking probably 20% of the WNBA.
Okay.
If we flip the switch to the men, the average height of that would be more like 6'6", 6'7",
Okay.
and far more athletic, as opposed to on the shorter side. Guys, you know how many guys in the NBA currently right now who's under 6 feet? Probably 20 or less that actively plays.
Okay.
The league has over 400 players. So there will be a large discrepancy in that if women were to, if the league were to be all one. So, which means the skill set
Mm-hmm.
is not comparable. The athleticism is not comparable. And so when you put all that together, because they cannot be in one league, which means there's a clear difference in athleticism. This is, the men, this is the women. So that was to further my point back to the fact that why did you lower the rent? As far as this one goes, women supporting women, I would be the first to tell you that if women decide to support something, like we could see it in the last election, or we could see it in like a lot of things. When women decide to support something, there is a mass difference in viewership and what do you call it? Just how much of it is out there, how much that we see when women decide to support.
Mm-hmm.
So majority of the viewership for the WNBA right now is men,
Mm-hmm.
which means women are supporting at a far lower level.
Mm-hmm.
And now, and you say that it shouldn't be about women needs to support women in order to generate views and revenues and all that stuff like that. I disagree. If women supported the WNBA the way men support the NBA, it would make a big difference. And it's already proven that men are always supporting the WNBA, but it's like we're not doing enough. We're already doing way more than women are, but it's still not enough. Why don't women, pick up the slack?
Because you're missing the point. The point is that the viewership is already male. You are telling women that we need to now participate in something that we had no interest in the first place, simply to support women. So if there was in some magical land, if there was an all women's sport that men suddenly wanted to come into, but men already didn't support that sport, nobody would be telling men, hey, you need to go support them because there's men doing stuff. Like that wouldn't happen because they're not already interested in that sport. You see what I'm saying? What I'm saying is that because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to insist that somebody likes something simply because their gender is doing it when they didn't like that thing to begin with. The point is that men are already interested in basketball. Okay. Men are already interested in the sport. They are interested in the sport itself. Yes. So if we're not separating the sport into genders, then why isn't the male viewership for the WNBA the same as the regular NBA?
Again, we are the avid supporters of the WNBA.
Right, but there's still a discrepancy in the viewership. There's a discrepancy
because
in the viewership of the men.
We mentioned the reasons why.
Yes, because it's not entertaining. I get that, and we covered that. But what you're telling me is that women need to do what you're telling me is that women have to develop an interest in something that they weren't already interested in.
But they're interested in men basketball. Women watch the NBA.
Of course they do.
So why?
And I guarantee there is a handful of women who genuinely give a shit about the sports, and then there's those who are watching because their men are watching.
Okay, so you're saying that women. Okay, you're saying that is because women are not interested in men basketball.
Some women, yes.
Well, of course. I mean, like as a whole, like not as a whole, but I mean, like if you break down the numbers, it means that women are not as interested in basketball.
Right. Statistically, we're not.
Okay. Women are not interested in basketball. So then if you're not interested in basketball, but you want women to generate as much money as the men.
Because if the men are interested in basketball, there's still a discrepancy in the viewership. If you are interested in the sport in general, why does the gender of the people playing it make a difference?
Because your gender is not entertaining on the court.
And we established that already.
That's why we're not. Okay. Women are not entertaining on the court.
I'm not debating with you whether or not the reasons why men aren't watching the basketball, but you're telling me that women need to watch something that we weren't watching to begin with. That doesn't make sense.
Okay. So no. Here's the thing. My thing is you can't have it both ways. You can't say you're not interested in the sport, but you want to generate as much money as the men because the men need to watch more. Even though we established that the reason why the men watch some teams more than others, some games more than others, is because of the entertainment factor. You're saying no, you don't need to be entertaining, but you need to generate as much money as viewership.
That is not what I said.
Okay, but you're saying that men need to watch the WNBA more. Yes.
I didn't say they need to do anything.
No, but you're saying that the WNBA would generate more revenue if men watch more.
Yes.
Okay, and women don't need to do as much to watch. Women don't need to go out their way to watch because it's women's game.
No, that's not what I said either. What I'm saying is that I believe that you are incorrect in making it our responsibility to engage in a sport that we weren't watching that much to begin with.
But you made it our responsibility to generate views and money.
Because you're already the viewership for the sport. That is the point. You're already the viewership for the sport.
But I told you why we watch. If a game is not entertaining, I don't care if it's men or women.
And I'm not disputing that with you. All I'm saying is that it is ridiculous for you to tell women who weren't already watching the sport that we need to step up and start watching now.
But you know what?
Support them.
But the WNBA
because it would make sense. I'm sorry. Because it would make sense and make up for the lack of support.
So you're going to start watching figure skating because more black men start figure skating?
Maybe. If there were more black men in figure skating, I absolutely would watch it. You know why? Because it's so rare.
That's true.
If there were more black men, and for example, the NFL, once upon a time. Go ahead.
No. I mean, look at golf. A lot of black men or black people started watching golf because they saw somebody who looked like them playing the sport. I would also say the sad irony in all of this is that the people who created the WNBA, they created it for women to watch and so that they could support their own.
For representation.
Right, and it's not getting the support from the people that they made it for. That's a problem. And this is why they have to lower it. They have to do something to get more women to watch. They have to do something because it's not. How long has when did the WNBA come out?
He said 24 years ago.
24 years ago. So 97.
They have to do something. and I like women's basketball, but I wanted to get with the
Okay.
sport.
But can someone explain to me why these things aren't being done? Why women players aren't getting as much publicity? Why they're not pushing for more endorsements? I mean, the last time, like, why aren't female basketball players doing guest spots on TV anymore? You know, what's her name? Cheryl Miller was on Living Single, and she did a whole basketball battle thing with Queen Latifah. Why don't we see that
I
anymore?
remember that.
You know, Lisa Leslie used to be on everything. You couldn't kick a cat without seeing Lisa Leslie's face on something. And then all of a sudden she vanished, and then so did the WNBA. Clearly there is a space for you to promote the WNBA, but it's not being promoted. Now tell me why that is. And you can't simply be because it's not as entertaining. Because like you said, the Spurs are boring as fuck apparently, but we still know when the Spurs are playing. We still see previews for a game with the Spurs versus whoever. We still see that. I don't remember ever seeing a commercial for the WNBA playing ever for any reason. So
I do agree.
Well,
explain that.
For one, I will say you're not what you know. I'm gonna be careful about about how this sounds. Okay? If you are watching Oxygen or Lifetime or Hallmark, you're absolutely not going to see a WNBA game being promoted.
Now,
However,
why do you think that
watching,
those are the channels that I'm talking about?
Again,
you weren't careful enough.
What happened?
You weren't careful enough with how you phrased that.
If you let me finish, maybe if you let me finish, I can make my point.
I doubt it, but good luck. Go ahead.
You can have me there. Okay.
I'm listening.
Okay. It's just a numbers thing. Okay. If you look at those channels, majority of viewership is women. If you look at certain other channels that promote sports like exclusively, NBA TV, Fox Sports 1, ESPN, stuff like that. If you look at the majority of viewership is male, right? So the reason why you're not seeing like the promotion for WNBA is because you're watching the wrong channel. And I don't mean you personally. I mean like based on what the number says, women in general. So I definitely see the WNBA being promoted, but then again, my television is like back and forth between like 5 or 6 different sports channels. That's where it's being promoted. If you're not watching, of course you're not gonna see it.
But shouldn't they promote it on non-sport networks to get other people involved? Because it does seem like back in the days, especially when the WNBA first came out, you would hear about certain players and stars more than today. It just seems that way. It seems that way. There's something that's changed.
The WNBA doesn't have a face. You mentioned when the WNBA first came out, you mentioned
Cynthia Cooper.
You mentioned Cynthia Cooper, Cheryl Miller. You mentioned Lisa Leslie at some point, and I could bring you as
Cheryl Swoops.
I could bring you as recent as Cheryl Swoops. Teresa Witherspoon, who played for Liberty, and I could bring you as recent as Candace Parker, who played for the Sparks. Or Skylar Diggins. I could bring you a number of people who once upon a time where the WNBA was trying to make it like this, like the face of the league, but they also don't have a face of the league, because it almost seems like they will play 1 year, or at least like some of them will play 1 year and then they're good, but then next year you don't hear anything about them because the team is not as good. But there are certain players, star power, it makes a big difference. You take certain players in the NBA, no matter where they go, that star power follows. The WNBA doesn't have that. They don't have a star power where where no matter who if you did like when certain players in the NBA like or become a free agent or they get traded and stuff like that, you hear about it for weeks at a time,
right?
Because of the level or because of the caliber of player they are on their level, the star power that that they command. The WNBA doesn't have that. They don't have somebody on that level, so therefore. A lot of times when these things are happening, you're not going to go to see it. The league doesn't, like I say, the WNBA doesn't have a face.
But let me ask you, aren't the players in the WNBA now better than they were in '97?
The WNBA, yes, they are.
So what is the issue? Why can't they have a face? Is it several faces maybe?
If you're saying that they're better, then that means that somebody on one of these teams somewhere has to have star power. They have to have the ability to represent the WNBA because they're just that good of a player. Now, why would the marketing people for the WNBA not be pushing these people forward?
Yeah, why don't they select? Why don't they push? Why don't they just push somebody? The NBA tries to do it all the time. They're always trying to like make somebody the new.
Constantly
What is
shoving
the
somebody's
issue?
face down our throats. Why don't they do that with the NBA? Why aren't they trying to shove the WNBA down our throats?
Because for one, the men go harder for the NBA than the women go for their own sport. Even the women in the sport. For example, like for
You mean
example,
the viewers or the players?
As the players, I'm saying the men, for example.
Explain that.
No,
Yeah.
I'm saying the men, for example, right? During off season, whenever that is, the men not only or they're constantly watching, posting about games. Whether somebody they will sit there watch college sports and post about it. They will constantly post about it. They will go on shows. They have they more almost every one of these players have like local camps in their hometown where they go and basically promote and push basketball forward. There are players who, for example, like Kobe before he passed, like he was a champion for women's sports. Like he would go out of his way to promote, women's sports stuff like that. There are plenty of players who do that stuff like on during the off season. The WNBA, not so much. Maybe a couple of them will do like brand promotion for the league, or just bring awareness or do local camps. Maybe a couple of them will do that, but not on the same level that the men do. So when you put all that together, it's the fact that the men are doing more.
Now, is it that the men are actually doing more, or that it's just the men who are getting more publicity for it?
No, because there are guys in the league right now who their local camps is not being televised prior to social media. Even on social media, they're the ones who's promoting their own brand. They're the ones who's promoting. Oh yeah, I'm having a local camp, in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is where I'm from. With the local guys there, and they'll post that online. They'll put that online. They'll put it out there. They will do stuff like this. The WNBA, the women there, they are doing the same thing.
But part of that issue, I think, with that too, is their salary when they play, because in the off season, I think a lot of them, some of them probably go overseas and do other things to get revenue, because the revenue is not the same as the men. Like the men have this cushion where in the summer they could chill and have these camps and do all of this. They could like show their face. Some of them go to WNBA games. I do see them visiting the girls to watch them. But it just seems like the girls in their off season, they probably have different priorities, or it's like they have other priorities because they got to make sure their money is on point. They got to eat. So it kind of sucks, and I feel bad about that.
It does suck. I agree with you. It does suck. And again, there should be a lot more. Like they should be out there more, especially like there should be a space. What I'm saying is the fact that we can't just automatically say it's because men aren't doing enough. We can't just say it's because it cannot be like all on us.
I wasn't trying to say that it had to be always you. I wasn't trying to say that men as a whole aren't doing enough and this is all your fault. But it is a contributing factor. When any endeavor fails, it isn't all one thing that caused it to fail. It's a series of events. It's a series of things that cause something to fail. That is a contributing factor. A contributing factor is the complete and total lack of attention and marketing that the WNBA gets. On regular networks, on non-cable networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, you see when the guys are playing. You see when the NBA is having a game. They show it everywhere on Channel 11, on Channel 7, Channel 9. They tell you when these games are happening. And this is standard, regular channels that everybody has. Never have I seen an advertisement for the WNBA on any of those networks. Never.
Another contributing factor is the lack of support the WNBA gets from its own players as well as other women. That's another contributing factor. You can't tell me that. You can't tell me. No, hold on. You can't tell me that if tomorrow 50 million women decide they're going to watch WNBA games, that the viewership is not going to skyrocket.
Of course,
because that's just how numbers work. It absolutely will. And you can't tell me that the same way that I said, listen, if right now, this tomorrow, some guy that that we grew up, we love in whatever other sports or whatever. Let's say there's an actor that we like, or an athlete that we like. He decides he's gonna pick up figure skating. We're gonna watch out of curiosity. Then we're gonna watch him like, wait, this is actually more interesting than we thought. If women aren't even giving the WNBA a chance, so therefore, if the support is really not there on certain parts of it, so there's multiple contributing factors. Women not supporting the game is a major factor.
It is an factor. It's a factor. It is not a major factor.
It's a major factor.
Is it the biggest factor?
What happened?
I'm asking, is it the biggest factor? I'm just asking, is it the biggest factor? It might be. I don't know. It might be.
I don't have the numbers. Like, I mean, I could do a lot. I've done a lot of research, but I don't have the exact numbers to tell you, like, all the exact factors. All I know is there's a lot of factors, and that is a major one of them. Because when you look at the viewership for the WNBA, again, avid or casual fan, it's mostly men anyway.
Right.
I feel like if women started watching, not even at a higher rate than men, at a similar rate as men do, their revenue, their marketing, and all that would jump like at least twice as what it is now. At least that much.
You're right. No one disputes this. What I am saying is that is not the only factor. That's all I'm saying, is that is not the only factor. And it's not even necessarily a major factor, because all you're looking at is numbers. You're not looking at any of the human psychology that has to do with why people don't support the WNBA, why women aren't supporting it.
So let's talk about that. Why more women aren't supporting it?
Well, for the simple fact that women in sports aren't taken seriously. If a woman is with her boyfriend or her husband or whoever, with her friend, doesn't matter. If a woman is with the man and says, "Oh, let's go watch the WNBA," and he makes a face at her, that's it. As a female, you shut down, because now you're in a place where you're about to get mocked for being a woman, which is something we deal with constantly. So you're going to be afraid to throw support to something because you're throwing support to girly shit. That is also a factor. The fact that girls are not encouraged to play sports, girls are not encouraged to watch sports, because these are things that boys do. Things like that are a factor. It's not simply that we don't want to watch and we don't want to support these women. It's that most women were never conditioned to do so. There are lots of factors. And that conditioning, before you even come at me, Wetson, a lot of that conditioning was started by men. So it is not simply our viewership that is the problem. If the conditioning of women changes, and our treatment and the general discrepancies in how we're raised, if some of that shit changes, yes, in maybe 10 years, the WNBA will be in a very, very different place. And I really hope that that's the case. But right now, we're not there yet. And that is still a factor that people have to acknowledge. Like, numbers are numbers, but there is so much shit that goes beyond and behind those numbers that people don't pay attention to.
Okay.
When you're going to market anything, you have to think about the psychology of the people you're marketing to.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And unfortunately, the psychology of women is not to throw support to certain things, especially when it comes to sports, especially when it's something that men don't necessarily support or that men see as a novelty.
So is it men's?
I can agree.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Greg.
No, I was just saying, is it, at the end of the day, is it men's fault? Is it our fault that the WNBA isn't where it should be? Because it goes back to the psychology that we put in place from the jump. So does it ultimately fall on us?
Okay.
No, it doesn't. It's a group effort. Women have to deprogram that shit as well.
Okay.
And that's the point I was making. I was saying, you're saying that, there was the lack of support, the lack of interest and stuff like that. But for me, it comes down to, again, there's a lot of unlearning and relearning and deprogramming that has to be done. There's a lot of it. And from what I could see in terms of like taking sports seriously, taking women in sports seriously, it seems like men take women in sports more seriously than women take women in sports. So with that being said, I feel like a lot of deprogramming or rebranding, or like not rebranding, but like a lot of deprogramming and unlearning and relearning that's happening. I can't the numbers are telling me that men are already like working on that and doing that, and women aren't doing it as much. Which means that of course it's taking time, but again, support is support. If you want to support something, like for example, right now, if you want to support a black-owned business, you almost gotta go out of your way in order to find that. If you want to support, if you want to support, major corporations, it's easy. You just walk in the nearest store you find, the nearest like major store you find is going to be, a major corporation. However, if you want to support, you gotta go the extra mile, do the extra effort. So, which means that listen, if the WNBA game is not being promoted, not being promoted on all the channels you watch, you can seek it out.
You're absolutely
And
right.
if you want to support, you can take the extra steps to go support.
You're absolutely
Simple as
right.
that.
And if for whatever reason I am being forced to watch a basketball game, I will insist that we do a split screen and watch a WNBA game if it's on. I will absolutely do that. However, one of the things that is constantly not acknowledged is the fact that men have the freedom, such as your privilege, to support what you want, especially in particular when it comes to sports. You don't get criticized for any sport that you support. It doesn't matter. There are men who are hardcore into curling.
Hmm.
It's helping guide a little. Have y'all seen curling before? I don't even know whose idea this was. But there are men hardcore into curling and they are not judged for it at all because it is sports and it is manly and this is what men do. So it is okay. Sports in general has not been a woman's place.
Hmm.
There are so many spaces where women are still trying to establish their own space and having it be okay for them to like certain things without being judged or criticized or put in a box because of it.
By
Men don't
who?
have that problem.
Who's putting women in that place when it comes to sports? Or
Sometimes it's men and sometimes it's other women.
mostly other women.
It's not mostly other women.
It is.
It's not.
It is.
It's not.
Yeah, it's mostly other women
Listen, it's not
we've
mostly other women. I will concede that it's half and half, but you're not going to tell me that it's mostly other women.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about your group of friends, in particularly, but I can tell you right now, I could take, a lot of the women I know. If you put them in the room and one just watching WNBA game, they'd be like, no. Majority of the women, like, men will be like, oh yes, absolutely. Women will be like, no. If a man suggests to a group of guys to watch certain things, they'll be more open to it than when it comes to women, and when it comes to women and supporting whatever that is, because again. It's almost like women don't even give themselves women don't even give themselves the what do you call it, the elasticity, the freedom to be able to, like, oh yeah, you can like this and this. It's almost like, why are you watching that? Like, men on the other hand, like, well, listen, it's something on TV, we don't care, especially if it's sport.
And I wonder what
listen, you tell me. I don't have all the answers. I'm simply saying that we know when like a lot of times, like when it comes to women judging, when it comes to women being judged, a lot of that judgment comes from other women.
Yes, a lot of that judgment comes from other women because of the programming we have as to how we're supposed to behave based on man's ideas.
And that's why I asked what I asked a second ago to say, is it all our fault? Because that's what it seems like.
I'm not going to say it's all your fault. I can't say that it's all men's fault because you have men out there like Wedson who will watch the WNBA and who will watch the sports with his daughters and say, hey, you guys want to play. And if they don't, they don't, and they can play with their dolls. And if they do, then he's going to still play the game with his daughters. I have female friends who all they want to do is play basketball. One of my sister-in-laws, she's got a hoop and it's mainly for her. She's got a hoop out front of her house and she uses it more than anybody else that I've noticed. So I cannot say that it is all men, and that would be unfair to say. But for you to simply say that it is all women and not acknowledge men's accountability, yes, what you said was that it is mostly women's fault because we're the ones that judge. You have to understand why we do that. we have been trained that women are supposed to behave a certain way. And some women will still hold on to that so hard that we're not given the space to be interested in things that are previously looked at as manly.
But you see, the same way you're saying that, like, you're saying, oh, yeah, women don't support, but it's because of this. But when men don't support, you simply said, it's because they're misogynist. Not you. It's simply because, they're sexist. That's why they don't support. When women don't support, it's because of how we've been programmed. But programming works in both ways.
Of course.
So then
I didn't say that this wasn't bad programming on for men too. Men were programmed to not take women seriously. It's not.
So then
directly's fault.
Sorry to interrupt again, but just in case you didn't get a chance to do it the first time, just wanted to give you another reminder to please subscribe to this channel and also hit the bell notification so you can be notified of all the different shows on this channel. Also, make sure you like this video, write your comments below, and share this video with your friends. I'm just trying to get this channel to grow, so your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Now back to the episode.
And again, it seems like a lot of us are undoing that on a smaller scale, as like myself, or on a global scale, like certain male athletes are doing. So, which means it is being done. I'm simply saying, join us in doing so by supporting the same way we're trying to.
But okay. I don't watch basketball. I don't give a shit. I don't care.
You do give a shit. You just don't watch it.
I genuinely don't care about basketball. It is not something that I'm just like, oh, the game's on. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to stop by it for 10 seconds. I'm not going to do it. If football's on, that's something that I might stop and stare at for 10 seconds, but then I'll get bored and I'll watch something else. Basketball, I'm not going to stop the channel. I don't care. But when someone said, hey, I've got tickets to a WNBA game, yeah, let's go. I was quicker to support the WNBA than I was to support the NBA because they don't need it. Like, they don't care. And I don't want to be surrounded by most of the people who watch the NBA. And I had a good time. So I completely lost my train of thought because I knew you were about to say something.
Okay. But you said that, you don't care about the WNBA. You don't care about basketball in general.
Right.
And then you're saying that, however, you're saying you will not stop to watch a WNBA game. But if you have to, you're talking about going to a game, then that you will do. But majority of people are not going to the game.
No, what I said was, in general, I won't stop to watch a basketball game.
Hold on a second. 1 second.
So what I was saying was that I'm not going to not watch a WNBA game because it's the WNBA. I'm not going to watch it on TV because it's basketball. I don't care about basketball as a whole. It has nothing to do with the fact that it's them. Whereas other people who are actual basketball fans will simply not watch a WNBA game because it's the WNBA. And I'm not saying that that's you, and I'm not saying that that's everybody, but that is a decent number of people who will simply not pay attention because it's the women playing. And that is part of the deprogramming that you mentioned that does need to happen. Now, when you talk about women in sports, I'm going to watch. If you tell me women are doing things, I'm going to show up. That's who I am as a person. If you tell me, hey, Nia, there's a WNBA game on, I'll put it on. I was saying to Greg, I'll put it on. And because I don't like basketball, I'm probably not going to sit and watch it, but I'll at least have my TV tuned to it and I'll go do something else. There's always something, but I'll at least put the ratings there. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But that's not everybody. Not everybody is going to put any kind of effort into supporting something that they're not already interested in. Like with tennis, I don't like tennis. I don't really care about tennis. But if the Williams sisters are playing, I'm gonna go. If I have tickets, if I have access to tickets for a match for the Williams sisters, I'm gonna go. If I see that they're playing on TV, I'm gonna watch, or I'm at least gonna put my TV on it. I'm gonna do my part to make sure that the support is there. But if you don't if these things aren't in my face, I'm not gonna go looking for it. Because in general, for the sport itself, I don't care. If you were to ask me who played last week in men's basketball, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you who's playing right now. I completely forgot that March Madness even happened until I went out and there were boys everywhere screaming at the TV. I was like, oh, fuck. Why didn't I stay home? You know, I don't care. I don't care. If you tell me there's a boxing match on, that's different. You tell me MMA and UFC is on, that's different. I will look for that because that's something I am interested in.
Okay. And
But
you know what?
that's different. You know, that's what the discrepancy is. That's my only point. For women who already aren't interested in basketball, it is unfair for people to demand that we show
unfair
up with
by
something
who?
we didn't already like. That's all I'm saying.
Unfair to who? Unfair to you guys?
Yes.
Okay, but also, but is it then fair to say, hey, we don't like basketball, don't force us to like basketball, and hey, I know you men like basketball, or you use a certain level of competition and entertainment with basketball, even though you're not getting the same thing here, you should still support because in order to show that you support women.
No,
Is
I'm
that
not
fair?
trying to force anybody to do anything.
And that's what and that's what I'm saying the thing that women WNBA needs more support, and men are not doing enough.
It's the reason why, Wedson. It is the reason why men aren't watching women's basketball. You aren't watching because you don't find it as entertaining. And I hate to break this to you, but that is not always the reason.
So
I had a man flat out tell me, oh, why am I going to watch a bunch of girls skip up and down the court? That is the mentality of some men out there. I'm not saying all, I'm not even saying it's the majority, but there are men out there who still think that way. And those men are a problem. Those men don't give a shit about the sport itself. They care about what everyone else is watching, what everyone else is doing. Those are the people that I am talking to. Those are the people who are a problem and need to have their shit adjusted. I don't mean you, men who will still throw support, men who actually enjoy the sport but simply aren't entertained by it. I can respect that. I can respect that. There are people in sports that I do enjoy that I will watch just for them. I watched a whole season of football, and I don't like football either, but I watched the whole season of football because I got attached to the Saints. First and last, mind you, first and last full football season from beginning to Super Bowl that I watched. And it was only because I got attached to the Saints. And I never watched another season again because I stopped caring. You know, people will watch for their own reasons. But if your reason for not watching something is because they're women, that's a problem. And those are the men that I'm talking about, not the men who are simply not entertained by it, because I can respect that. That's all I'm saying. Not all men are like you. That's something that you have to realize. You and your circle and the people that you talk to, that's not everybody outside, you know? And just like not all women are like me, who's at least going to throw the channel on but walk away, not all women are going to do that either. And I understand that. But then those are the women who I will insist to shut the fuck up in a conversation like this, because if you're not going to help, then you don't get a voice.
That's fair.
That's the only point that I was trying to make there. That's it. I wasn't trying to come from men and trying to say that it's all your fault and all your responsibility, but there are men out there who could be throwing more support because they enjoy the sport itself, but won't for the simple fact that it's women.
So Winston, I want you to speak. I'm just going to throw out the final question. So to summarize, how do we solve this issue with the WNBA? What do you think we should do? Whether it's collectively us as a society, or what do you think it needs to be done, or maybe it's something the WNBA themselves need to do? What do you think needs to be done to change things around?
Okay, what do we need to do as a whole in order to resolve the discrepancy between the WNBA viewership and revenue?
Yeah, all of that.
You see, I'm an engineer. I went to school for computer science. I know nothing about marketing. So I don't know what marketing is doing that end, but logic to me like says, hey, if you like something or you want something done, be the change you want to see. You want to see more support for the sport, support it more. You want to you want to see more money going towards this particular business or this particular like what do you call it there's a term I was thinking about. Anyway, can't think of it right now. Like is there something you want to see, like more money towards this business or this venture? Put money towards it. It's simple to me. So if somebody's complaining, and again, it's not you, Nia, but if somebody's complaining, nobody's watching the WNBA. But then every single time a game come on, I don't want to see that. They won't even throw it on for the viewership. Then you don't get to complain about it because you're not doing it. You're not doing anything to rectify it. If I complain about lack of support for anything, I will support it myself because I want to see, because I don't want to follow the pack. I want to lead the pack. I mean, and of course, there's nothing wrong with following, but it's like, if you want to, be the change you want to see in the world, if you want to do something, support it. If you think there's something wrong with this, do it. Like, just be that. Don't be a hypocrite saying, oh, nobody supported the WNBA. Oh, also, I'm not going to support it because I don't care. It's like, hey, you can't have it both ways. You can't be out here just, giving directions on what other people should do, support, but you're not doing it yourself. Practice what you preach.
Okay.
That's
And Leah?
I think Watson's absolutely right. And I'm not one to like buy merch, and like spend money on billionaires. That's usually not something that I'm prepared to do. But there have been times, I mean, when I was a kid and I was hardcore into the Yankees, I spent money there. I went to the games. I spent money at the concession stands. I don't know how many Yankee hats. I got Yankee fitteds for days. But also, when you're in New York, the Yankees get shoved down your throat. The Giants get shoved down your throat. The Mets will get shoved down your throat. Shove the WNBA down our throats. They have to step up the marketing. And not for nothing, I'm going to voice an unpopular opinion, but if this was a man's team for some random obscure sport, they would take the gamble that people are going to watch and they would throw money at it. They would have people more invested in trying to get shit done and trying to get this in everybody's face so that people want to watch more. They need to start being willing to gamble more on females. They need to be willing to gamble on women. The marketing needs to be there. I want to see more WNBA merch. Show me a hat fitted for the WNBA and I will buy it. I promise you I'll buy 3 in every color. But show me. I don't see any of it. I mean, and I looked because it occurred to me I never actually saw it, but like I looked at the logo for the WNBA and it's silly. It's silly. It's like this little dainty silhouette that's like this. Like, what are you doing? Why? Why is it? Why is the NBA like blue and red? Like stand out. Everybody has these colors. Those colors, as Wetson can prove right now, is on most people's flags. Those are very, very basic. Those are very, very basic, easy to rep colors. Blue, white, and red. It's on almost every flag. And he's in an athletic pose. He's doing stuff. The silhouette of that logo alone shows activity. And it automatically gives you something you can relate to just by the colors that's in it. They made the WNBA some weird arabesque PK thing that this girl's doing with the basketball, and they put it in orange. Like, who? Why?
They were trying to.
What nectarine is
They
walking
were trying
around?
to market it to women. They were trying to market it to women. Thinking
Also,
women would like it.
it needs to be delicate and it needs to be in a bright, shiny color. Why didn't they just make the fucking thing pink to make everyone hate it more? You know,
Again, they were trying to market it to women.
But don't pander to us. That's the thing. When people market to women, when Sears did it, come see the softer side of Sears. Why? I'm sorry, Sears. This bitch ain't soft. I don't want to see the softer side of anything. I want to make sure that my furniture is durable enough for me to jump on it 75 times.
Well, also the reason, well, for Sears for a long time, because people thought it was all about like heavy appliances and and heavy tools, because that's what that's what
But why
majority of
doesn't that
men use
apply to
for.
women? Why doesn't that apply to women?
Because generally women don't want to do those things. Women don't want to deal with with heavy
Right, but then
machinery
those are the women.
and tools.
Then those are the women who aren't going to shop at your store regardless. So if there's going to be women who are not going to watch basketball, they're not going to watch it, no matter how dainty or cute or pretty or pink or orange your logo is. If they're not going to do it, they're not going to do it. If people would stop treating women like, we don't know what we want, and that all we need is something dainty, pretty, and frilly, maybe some shit would change. Maybe we're just tired of being insulted. Market the WNBA the same way the NBA gets marketed. Let me tell you something. I was not raised as little and dainty as my mom may be. She got more excited about a power drill set than most girls get excited about Louboutins. Okay? Those are the people that I'm coming from. So you can't.
You know what?
So I am not someone who you can pander to with the whole, we're marketing for women, so it needs to be soft, it needs to be sweet, it needs to be quiet and pretty. I am none of those things. Don't bullshit me. Don't hustle me. I don't like it. If you're gonna bring me into a room where the men are, then I expect the same treatment. I expect that energy to be the same. And that's what they had to do with the WNBA in the first place. Keep the same energy that you gave the men. And that is the problem, is that didn't happen. And that's something that needs to change. In addition to deprogramming girls into thinking that they can't like sports, or that they only have to be interested in sports when the person that they're dating is interested in it. There also needs to be more space in how people are raising their children and the stuff that they're exposing them to, that says that, just because you like sports doesn't mean that you're a tomboy, which is not a thing. Just because you like wearing heels doesn't mean you can't dunk a basket. Just because you have long nails doesn't mean you can't spiral a football. That programming needs to be
Actually,
broken.
long nails make it difficult to spiral a football.
They don't, trust me.
Okay.
If you try hard enough and you can learn to do anything. But for me, the marketing needs to change, because they did not keep the same energy when the women came out that they kept for the men. And that year discrepancy, you had 50 years, 50 of them, to figure out how to adequately and effectively market to women. And that's the shit that you came up with. That's some bullshit.
Actually, what happened is, during that time, they tried, but women for 50 years weren't interested.
Of course, because we're not trained to be. But marketed the same way. The energy was not the same. The energy for the WNBA was never the same. It never was. Regardless as to our response to it, it was never the same energy going in as it was for the men. When women in sports are advertising for things, up until recently, the last decade maybe, women weren't advertising for, even if they're athletes, women weren't advertising for Nike and I don't know, Reebok or whatever the fuck. They weren't advertising for athletic wear. We were advertising for deodorants. We were advertising for water resistant makeup. Your mascara will stay on as you're dunking baskets. No, why? Why is that what we get? That's the shit that has to stop. You know, now they're showing women not in sports bras and leggings all the time, but in sweats and actual athletic gear, lifting heavy weights, running miles. That's the energy we needed when it started. That's the
I
energy that
couldn't help
men
but
get
laugh.
all the time. That's what
Hmm.
has the marketing has to change. They have to stop trying to pander to females and treat us like the same way you would treat anyone interested in a sport or interested in any type of athletics. And then
Mm,
on an individual level, the programming of females has to change. We have to stop treating our little girls like they're dainty little princesses. You know what? Xena was a princess too, and she could whoop your ass. Those are
Hmm.
the princesses that we need to start teaching our children to be like, not frilly, covered in lace, laying on the ground waiting for their prince to save them. Get your
I
ass
couldn't
up,
help.
get a sword and a stick, and save yourself, sweetie.
Hmm.
These
Well,
these are the things that need to adjust.
hmm. I
Hopefully,
I
agree.
couldn't help but
everything.
laugh. Like, go ahead.
No, no, I was saying I agree with both of you with what you both said. I definitely think the promotion has to step up. I remember when the WNBA first came out, they stuffed it down our throats. They should keep that same energy. They should keep doing that. Keep doing it. You don't have to stop.
You know what
And
was
then I.
happening though? You know what was
Mm-hmm.
happening though?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, just you go back to your point, but what was happening with that is the fact that as they were doing that, they were actively losing money, and then by then, they also couldn't afford to pay the players a certain amount of money, and they were like, listen, we need to be paid more. They're like, well, all our money is going towards marketing, and we're not getting the same thing in return. Therefore, we're gonna slow back on the marketing. Continue.
Got you. They need to figure it out. The promotion definitely needs to be better, and I definitely think they need to select the female to push to be the star. I mean, I know there are many stars. I know there are a lot of great female athletes in the WNBA, but they have to figure out a way to like get that star because when you think about the NBA, you know Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, you know, a lot of people say that they saved the league, and then when Michael came, it was over. So they need some. I don't. They need. I don't. I don't know. It's hard for me to say that there's no revolutionary female in the WNBA right now. A lot of these females are really good. Like they're great. And if they were to get on
No,
the court with us dudes, they'll bust our ass. So I don't know what's going on with that, but
what you
they
mean?
need to.
You mean us regular dudes, or you mean like dudes, dudes who's out here, or who we talking about exactly? Because
Like the
Dudes in
majority,
general.
dudes in
hmm
general, dudes in general, dudes in general.
I'm saying, are we talking, are we talking against regular guys who play at the park? Because that's a mass difference than the guys, who's 6'9" and putting the ball between his legs while he
I
dunks
would,
on the
I would, I
defensive
would, I
rim.
would, I would say a lot of guys at the park. If females from the WNBA just walk on the court and was like, "Yo, we got next," and they play with some of the guys, it would be interesting. It would be
Of
interesting.
course.
You know what I'm saying?
First
It
of
would be
all, there
interesting.
are women in college right now I can't beat in basketball, and you would think like and I'm not tooting my own home, but I'm pretty good. Like I'm all right. It's like there are women in college, college W in the NCAA,
Yeah,
women's team right now that I cannot beat. A majority of them I cannot beat.
they're
There
really
might be
good.
there might be a couple like who rise the bench. Who like if it's on a good day, the sun is shining properly, the wind is is nice. I might get a win, but majority of the time because they are trained
Mm-hmm.
professionals.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's
at
it.
the same time, it's like, hey, that's the difference. But as opposed to guys, because and that's the thing we see a lot of time when it comes to athletes. Like we will see, like we'll see athletes, guys who who've been doing something like their whole life, whatever. He like guys sit there and they practice these things day in and day out, day in and day out. Like guys in college, for example, they'll go to the NBA. You're like, oh man, you were so great in college. What happened in the NBA? Well, it's a major difference in skill set because in college you were just a bunch of students who play ball on the side. In the NBA, these guys live, breathe, and like sleep basketball. They wake up and they train. They eat. They eat for basketball. Everything they do is about the game. So now, because the talent level is so much higher, you got to work twice as hard to get half as far compared to those guys. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the same thing, with like with a lot, with a lot of the games and stuff like that. It's really competitive.
Oh, one
And
more
it's like
thing.
even between now, like back then, the competition level is like light years better. You look at guys who play in the '60s versus guys who play now.
Of course.
It doesn't even compare.
Well, what about the female endorsements with like sneakers? When was the last time you seen like a dope ass sneaker that was as popular as like a LeBron sneaker or any male athlete? They got their sneakers out there, and fellas will support it and buy it and wait in line for hours and pay like $400-$500 for it. Where's the female version of that?
Oh, first of all,
that's part of it too.
Well, the reason is there's no female version of Michael Jordan or LeBron James out there. There isn't.
He's not talking about the players themselves. He's talking about the level of endorsement. So you could have Stu Bird, who apparently has the same stats as LeBron. Stu Bird could have her own sneaker.
Right. That's true.
Okay, but that goes back to for example, LeBron. When you think of LeBron, that man lives, breathes, and sleeps basketball. Everything about him screams basketball to you. We're talking like the branding as his own, not just the NBA branding, but his own branding as a whole tells you this is what he's all about. Michael Jordan, you can say from his time, took the game to a more global scale. Those guys changed basketball on a different level. But there hasn't been, a level of that, in WNBA.
But aren't there female basketball players that eat, live, sleep basketball? They just don't get that attention.
They also don't put the same energy out there.
It's about having to put on a show. These women are playing a game. They're doing what they have to do on the court, and then they have their own life. They're not putting on a show constantly for everybody.
Right.
And maybe that is something that needs to change too. Maybe these women have to get more into social media, more into marketing themselves and getting themselves out there. Maybe that is also an issue. But keep in mind that women, even like you said, Wetson, are susceptible to twice, if not three times as much judgment as men are just for stepping outside their door. So that is also a risk that they're taking, letting people into their lives, because society in general will come down harder on a woman for basic shit than they will for a man.
That's absolutely true.
So that I'm sure that's a concern with these women being, putting themselves out there like that. I did have a question for you though, Wetson.
I don't like where you're going with it.
Because you're the sports head. So the All-Star games, these are exactly what it sounds like. All stars from various teams, and they put them together and then separate them, and then they all play against each other. Right? That's correct? Why isn't the WNBA included in that?
No, they have a WNBA All-Star game.
Actually,
well, why aren't they? Well, why is there a WNBA All-Stars? Why isn't there simply an All-Star where the teams are integrated? Wouldn't the integration of the teams throw some more support towards the WNBA if people saw women holding their own in a man's game? Like, wouldn't that help?
Okay, they do have All-Star component. And before the pandemic, when they did like a grand All-Star game, stuff like that.
It was just funny that you said they have an All-Star component.
No, what's it called? Prior to the pandemic, they did integrate women to some extent in some of the
NBA, like the skills challenge.
Some of the NBA stuff, some NBA like nights and stuff that they had, because it's like a 3-night thing, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They did involve a lot of the WNBA women, and like, for example, when they did the celebrity games, when they did like the skills challenge, they have components, they have parts of it where they try to integrate women in it, and sometimes it works and it does bring some kind of attention to it. At the same time, the game itself, they haven't done that yet. That's yet to be done.
No, I know that, but I'm asking you, as somebody who is an advocate for the sport itself, why hasn't that happened? Like, why are the women a component? Why aren't they just part of the game?
because I will say for myself, and a lot of things like unless you are like avid fan, a lot of the people that they will bring in, you would know you don't know. So a lot of times, people who's like a casual watcher will see like, oh, they're bringing in Tyler Diggins from from Minnesota Lynx. It's like, who? It's like they don't know. So because of that, and also again, it's also a lot of it's about marketing, generating money and stuff like that. So a lot of times people want to see who they've been watching all the time. So they want to see like because there's a voting process to get people in All-Star games. They want to see the people they voted for. So if they're not watching, if they don't know about these guys, then a lot of times so that's why they try to do it slowly with like by including them in certain parts of it in order to generate more viewers. So they have been trying. Why isn't there more? I'm guessing it's something that will take time because it's not like again the time difference is one thing, and also like the marketing is different. If you don't know who's coming to who you're watching, you're less likely to pay as much attention. You're less likely to go out and and buy their merch. You're less likely to do any of that stuff. Again, right now, if you ask me, for example, I'm not a fan of hockey. If you ask me to name 2 hockey players, I could not do it. Not 2. And again, because I'm not a fan at all. However, if I decide to watch, if I decide, I'm just for hockey now because I see more black men in hockey, right? In which case, where I'll go out now and start watching, I guarantee you, give me a year or 2 years, then guess what? If I'm a fan, I'm going to start doing all the things that fans do. Post about it, buy the merch. I will do all those things too. But again,
why don't you watch hockey?
What happened?
Why don't you watch hockey?
I don't watch hockey because when I moved here, my cousins and I, first thing we did was we went out to like a sporting goods store. We bought every sports equipment that there is. So we tried a lot of things, and the ones that stuck was basketball and football. And we grew up playing and watching soccer, so those are the ones that stuck. Baseball, I tried mostly in high school because again, I consider myself an athlete where I could do a lot, I could try and do a lot of those things. Being 6'3" on ice is extremely difficult. So I've never done anything on ice. I don't even rollerblade. So because of that part of the game never appealed to me because I'm like, you tell me I gotta carry this big ass stick, trying to hit a puck on ice? Hell no. Like gravity is already against me here. So because of that, I was never interested. However, if I start watching it, I might become interested.
Also, when you
giving it a chance.
Also, you couldn't relate to it personally, you couldn't get into the sport. Because you couldn't relate to it personally, you couldn't get into the sport.
Yeah.
Also, growing up in the hood, right? It's easier to just get a basketball, you throw on some shorts and sneakers, and go play. Hockey, you gotta get all this equipment. It's expensive. You gotta have ice or rollerblades. It's too much. It's too much.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
So
again, because of that, I was never like, oh, I'm gonna go out and buy, I'm gonna go out. Oh, it's like, what am I gonna say? When we bought all those, sports gear, we'd be like, oh, we're gonna buy a hockey stick and a puck and play in the backyard. We can't play with a puck in the backyard. Like, oh, so now we're like, oh, now we gotta sit there and get some ice. I know we live in New York, but it's only cold half time out of the year. We can't play in a local pond.
It's complicated.
There. So it's like it's a lot more that goes into it in order to get into hockey as opposed to everything else.
Well, I mean, as long as you had some kind of skates, even on roller skates, if you had to just, like hustle your way into it, you could play hockey on roller skates theoretically.
And I'm telling you right now, again, you put me on roller skates, I don't like my chances. Again,
well,
between math and gravity, it just doesn't work for me.
I challenge you to watch a hockey game, though.
What happened?
I challenge you to watch a hockey game.
Okay, I have no problem with that.
Just because, see, if you're telling me that, if it's something that matters to you, you should just go ahead and support it. Then that means that you should be able to find the love of any sport if you have a good enough reason. That's the theory?
Yeah. No, listen. In theory, yes. Again, for me, if two kids go out there throwing a ball across across the street at the park, I will watch it because when it comes to sports, I love sports. The reason why I never watch hockey is because again I couldn't relate to it. But two kids out there in the park, throwing a ball, doing whatever it is, like two kids that I can relate to. I can join in.
It's easier to support something when you can relate to it and you see people who look like you playing the sport. Like when Tiger Woods got into golf, a lot of black people started watching golf. So
I'm saying right now,
representation makes a difference.
I think you have to watch golf.
That's right.
I even watch golf now.
Same here.
And I know, and I have friends of mine who actually play golf and tell me, dude, you should come join with us. I'm like, you know what? I will one of these times.
That's right.
Like, because it's like, oh yeah, one of these days I'm definitely gonna pick it up. I don't have the luxury of the time right now, but yeah, at some point I will.
So you both still actively watch golf?
I watch it sometimes, especially if I know Tiger's playing. Like when he comes back, hopefully.
But if he's not playing, and like once he retires officially, are you going to continue to watch golf?
I mean, I'll watch it casually when he's not playing, but he was the inspiration that got me started on it.
So you don't love the game, you love Tiger.
Yep.
Okay.
I enjoy watching him play.
But that's what I was saying. So when we were talking about the All-Star game, if you make it a mandate that you have to choose that there needs to be two women on either team. I don't care if you have them riding the bench the whole game, but there has to be two women on either team. Because at some point somebody's gonna get hurt. You're gonna have to put one of the girls in. But if you make that a mandate and people have to choose from the WNBA, when people want to participate in voting for the All-Star players, that means they're gonna have to watch the WNBA. They're gonna have to watch it to be able to choose one of the players.
You want them to integrate the NBA All-Stars and the WNBA.
Make people watch, and if the viewership is still is still not where it needs to be, and the women still aren't able to make as much as the men because the money is just not there, then so be it. But try everything. If you make it mandatory that two female players have to be on each team, so you need a total of 4 women to complete the All-Star games, people who are avid basketball watchers are going to have no choice but to watch at least a little bit of the WNBA so they can vote for the right players. They're going to
the problem is that the WNBA season starts after the NBA season is already over.
So what?
Okay, so now what that does, the conflict with that is the fact that when the NBA All-Star is happening, a lot of the women that play in the WNBA, they are not playing overseas.
That's
They're not playing in other leagues and stuff like that. So now
because they don't make enough money.
So adjust their schedule. Why is their schedule the way it is anyway? Why aren't they playing at the same time as the men anyway?
Because it would be too much.
It's not too much of the men, though.
No. The reason why it's like that is because they wanted to make sure that they weren't competing for viewership. Because again, if men and women will play at the same time, and men have to choose between watching, Kevin Durant and LeBron James play versus watching, two WNBA teams play, they're gonna lose viewership because of that alone. Because a lot of times, like I mentioned before, majority of the viewership for the WNBA is already men. But if men had to choose between watch the WNBA game or watch the NBA game, I'm gonna speak for myself. I would choose the NBA game. So because of that, women will lose even more viewership if it was happening at the same time as the men.
Well, I didn't say to put the games on like at the same time on the same day.
You mean the season? You just the seasons.
Keep them within the same season.
But I'm saying, for example, right? Okay. Because
WNBA season is like 2 months, 2-3 months.
And also because the NBA season goes from like basically October to ends basically in June, which is when the finals happen. But the thing, and the reason why I'm saying that is the fact that the men play 82 games. We're talking 30 teams, 82 games. Every single night, outside of like maybe like I'm gonna say 6 to 8 nights out of the year. No, not even New Year's. Like because they have games on New Year's Day, have games on Christmas. Those guys play all year round. And then the All-Star game, I think like 2 days after the All-Star game and 2 days before is when the men start playing. Those are the only days in between where they don't have where on any given night there's not a basketball team playing. Like every single night. That's a team. Then there are teams playing every single night. So because of that, it will be competing for viewership with the men, no matter when the WNBA games come on during that time span.
They don't want that battle, and I get it.
So if there's one day a week during that whole, 6-month span that the men are playing, if there's one day a week where the women play, why couldn't that happen?
One day a week, so then the women will be playing, one game a week for how long?
Well, if they're playing one game a week during the entire time that the men are playing, and their actual season is only 3 months as it is, what difference does it make?
Okay, but one game a week now would mean like they have that creates a whole new conflict, because one game a week now the women are now have to come out and play one, but how many teams are going to play? Because one game a week from October to June does it add up to the amount of games they play as a whole?
2 games a week. What I'm saying is that there has to be a way to integrate it more.
You want it integrated so that the WNBA can get the overflow of the NBA viewership to raise their viewership.
Right.
But again, if you put it in the same season as bad as the men's basketball, it will create conflict. And if you pick one day a week,
well, why couldn't you cut some of the men's games?
You say what?
Why couldn't you cut some of the men's games?
Because the revenue, they already cut it this year by 10 games.
Well, what do you mean cut the game? Like, they play less games?
Yes.
They're already doing that this year.
They're doing that this year because of the pandemic, and they're losing a lot of money for it.
They're losing a lot of money. Yeah. They're not going to lose that money.
And also, it's still a business. And again, imagine, because they could cut the game, but if they cut the game in order to integrate WNBA more, and they're not generating, the amount of money they're losing for it, at the end of the day, they have business. They're going to choose, the money. Mm-hmm. We still live in a capitalistic society. They're going to choose the money over everything else, every single time.
This whole thing is like.
But see, this is what I'm saying. This is part of my frustration, is that they're not willing to take the gamble and invest in the females. If they put more of the energy into their team as they do for the men, then maybe things could change.
Here's the thing. We live in America. America loves money more than they love anything. Whether it's people or whether it's women, whether it's people, like it doesn't matter. They love money more than anything else. That's why, they're going to choose the money. So, if it's not happening, they're not going to take a gamble. And because, even if, they take a gamble and they lose money, they're going to go right back to, to the status quo.
And if you have to go back to the status quo because it's not working, then that's fine. But try it. Don't automatically assume that it won't work. Try it. They have more than enough money where they can try it. There have been I've been a part of many companies where, to keep what they felt was a valued employee, members of management cut their salary so that they could afford to keep someone else.
Try telling Congress to take less money. Try telling Congress right now, just politicians, take less money so that the people that work for them or the people as a whole can get paid more. Try telling a CEO who's making $500 million a year.
Our government, we can have that fight about our government on another day, because that could take hours to discuss how shitty they are.
No, it comes down to the same thing. It's the money.
It's a smaller scale. The same way the players across the board on various sports decided to stand with Black lives and take a knee. They could try to stand with the WNBA and be like, you know what? We're going to take a 1% cut so that they can join our season and they'll play on 2 days when we're not playing.
Mm. It's hard.
I'm sure with the money, it's not feasible and nobody's going to want to do it. Right. But the point is that nobody's going to want to do it. Right. Nobody's going to want to try to help this organization succeed. Because they don't feel like it's worth it.
The WNBA has to figure out how to build its own self up during its own season. It sucks.
Why telling rich white men they didn't take less money or they need to make less money? Try telling them that, see how that works out. It doesn't work out.
Mm. Oh, I have.
Rich white men doesn't.
I've done that.
How much do they like that? How much do they like it?
They didn't like it, but they like the alternative a lot less.
Mm.
Well, again, so now you have to make the alternative, a lot less scary for rich white men to take a pay cut, especially once you guys did that, generating billions from. For example, the owner of the New York Knicks. The people have hated him for 25 years. They've told him he's complete garbage as a GM and as everything else, as an owner. But the team is worth like something like $1.5 billion.
Mm-hmm.
You think he gives a damn?
Right.
No. So it doesn't matter how much you like it, unless until we start affecting their pocket, they won't care. They won't change nothing.
What if they combined? Do you think that's something that could happen? Well, because you know how the NBA has have like their college ball. So college basketball is like a division of the NBA. It's sort of its own thing, but it's still under the actual umbrella. Why couldn't they just have a women's division of the NBA so that it's still all under the same thing?
They have a women's division. It's called the WNBA.
Do you wait, Nia? Do you want to see the women play with the men on teams? Like not ALLSTAR, just an integrated league.
Personally, I would love that. Realistically, I don't see how that would be feasible. Realistically, the same reason why, regardless of her skill and ability, I would not put Ronda Rousey in the ring with Conor McGregor. I wouldn't do that. Honestly, I don't know who would die. They might just kill each other, but I still wouldn't do it. However, I do think that there are women on these teams who probably can match the athletic ability of some of the men on some of these other teams. But the trial that you would have to go through to see which one of these women can actually match that would be daunting, and that in itself would cost a tremendous amount of money. So for that reason, I know that it's not feasible. Also, unfortunately, and I hate that this is a reality, but not all men are evolved enough to understand that they don't have the right to put their hands on women. So that means that you're going to have to separate the locker rooms and give women their own locker rooms, because they're not going to be able to be in the same room as the men, because some men don't know how to behave. So like there's a million things why that's not feasible. Would I love to see it? Hell yes. Do I realize where it's unrealistic? Absolutely.
We got to come to a close. So final thoughts for both of you. I know I said that, but I know I said that like 30-40 minutes ago, but
I actually do have a meeting coming up. I'm actually waiting for them to call me. So okay. So final thoughts. I understand the discrepancy, but the reason is I do feel like the WNBA needs to do more as a whole in order to promote, the brand, and in order, marketing, whatever it is. And I do think that the female players needs to do more as well. Like promote your brand, go hard for your brand as much as the men go for theirs. I do have to go, so let me just finish my final thoughts. I do think like there needs to be a major difference in advertising and how we do everything. So because of that, I think that this is what I think, like, women need to, a lot of women need to, like, make the extra effort to go, to do it. Just because, again, it may not be fair, but if you want equality, if you want, certain level of pay, if you want something like that, you have to go the extra mile. Simple as that.
All right, Wesson, you out? Thank you for joining, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.
Later, man.
Bye. Right.
Later. And I'll still give you your final thoughts.
Well, we have collectively established that the WNBA does need to do more to promote, whatever their reasoning is. After all this time, I can't imagine it's good enough, to be perfectly honest. So I don't really care what their reasoning is. They have to step up. They got to step up their marketing. They have to work on getting endorsements. I don't care if these women are endorsing, Japanese lip gloss. I don't care. Get them out there, get them in people's faces. As much as the men will have to go overseas to, when a lot of these NBA players start their careers, they have to go overseas to get noticed, make some money, and then they get, recruited back here. the women are like kind of exclusively getting attention overseas, and they're American teams, and that's not okay. I mean, we have to rally behind our women more, and we can't just do it when they look cute or when we need a new cover girl. You know, there has to be more. You know, people can't keep looking at women as a monolith. We're a plethora of different things, you know, and that needs to be displayed. You know, when Nike decided to go hard on showing women as athletes, I didn't see any woman from the WNBA in those commercials. You know, you can't tell me that they were all unavailable. Every single female in WNBA has something to do when Nike was doing that campaign. You can't tell me that. It's bullshit. I refuse to believe it. You know, so there are a lot of missed opportunities. You know, they have kids that like nobody knows, and like these Mountain Dew or these Dorito commercials or these Sprite commercials.
And they're pushing them.
And they're pushing them. And I don't know, I've never seen these children before in my life. Get one of the girls from the WNBA to do it. Hire one of these women to endorse these things instead of just picking random people off the street. You know, why wasn't Sue Bird in that commercial, in the Sprite commercial with LeBron? Why not? Why not?
I agree. It seems like a collective effort is needed on all fronts. WNBA, some of it, the players, just companies reaching out to these players, even the networks pushing them more, you know, even the sports networks pushing them more. So it's a little bit, and it's a conversation that's just going to have to continue, but it definitely was an interesting conversation, and that's why we went so long, but it was good. Very good insight from Wetson and you as well. So I appreciate it. So thank you.
We have to make sure we're taking responsibility for it too. You know, how we're raising our daughters and our sons.
Agreed.
And, you know, the images that we're giving them. You know, let girls play with tools and with trucks. Let boys play with dolls. Teach them that they don't all just be one thing. You know, that's a lot of the problem and the discrepancy in the sports world is the training that we get from young. So that is also something that definitely happens.
That's a whole topic right there too. But yeah, good points though. And but thank you again. And thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you next time.
Bye y'all.
Thank you for checking out Open Table Discussions. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe to this channel and also hit the bell notification to be alerted when the next show is posted. Also, visit tablechatter.com if you'd like to make a donation, and follow me on Instagram at @tablechatter, and DM me if you'd like to say hello or be a participant on a future episode. And please check out our other shows: Debate Boss, Table of Cinema, Table Advice, and Introducing Sports Table Talk, hosted by Wetson. Coming soon.